In the remote Bavarian countryside of Germany, nestled about 70 kilometers north of Munich, stood a small, isolated farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. On the night of March 31, 1922, one of Germany's most haunting and perplexing murder mysteries unfolded there, leaving 6 members of the Gruber Gabriel family dead and a legacy of fear and speculation that persists over a century later. The victims were Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, Gabriel Victoria's children Cecilia and Joseph, and the family's new maid Maria Baumgartner, who had arrived at the farm that very day. One by one, the killer or killers lured 4 of the victims, Cecilia Sr., Victoria, and little Cecilia, into the barn. He was one of the first on the scene and exhibited strange behavior, allegedly moving bodies and entering the house alone. The farmhouse was demolished in 1923, and a small shrine was later erected nearby. In the 2000s, forensic students at the Fürstenfeldbruck Police Academy reviewed the case, narrowing it down to one likely suspect, though the name was never made public. No arrests were ever made. Others believe the killer had lived in the attic for days or even weeks, secretly inhabiting the farmhouse. Some saw the crime as a result of a twisted, incestuous relationship between Andreas and Victoria, for which they had already faced legal trouble. Yet no valuables were taken, ruling out robbery. There, each was brutally slaughtered with a mattock. The bodies were then stacked in a crude pile and partially covered with hay. The murderer then entered the farmhouse and killed little Joseph in his crib and Maria in her bed. What followed was a grim and eerie discovery. For several days after the murders, neighbors noticed strange things. The family hadn't been seen. Their mail had piled up, and smoke still rose from the chimney. On April 4th, a group of concerned locals visited the farm. Inside the barn, they found the grotesque pile of bodies. Inside the house, they discovered Joseph and Maria. The police were called, but by then, the scene had been contaminated by the curious crowd. Investigators performed the autopsies right there in the barn, using primitive means. Even before the murders, strange events had surrounded the Hinterkaifeck property. Andreas Gruber had complained of hearing footsteps in the attic and finding an unfamiliar newspaper in the home one no one had purchased. Footprints in the snow leading from the woods to the house were discovered days before the murders. But, curiously, none led back. The family's previous maid had quit months earlier, claiming the house was haunted. Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, arrived the day of the murders only to die that very night. The crime baffled authorities. Numerous theories emerged. Some suspected Lorenz Schlittenbauer, Victoria's former lover, and possibly the father of little Jess. Despite over 100 suspects being interviewed and several investigations, the crime remains officially unsolved.